Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great-Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the inner sanctum.
Yeah. Harold Peary as the Great-Gildersleeve. As we go way back into the waning days of World War II, 79 years ago, January 30th, 1944, Marjorie the Actress. And we thank you for tuning in on this Monday. This is the 30th day of January, 335 days remaining until we get to 2024. In his first assassination attempt against the president, Richard Lawrence attempted to shoot Andrew Jackson, the president, on this date in 1835. Yerba Buena, California, renamed San Francisco on this date in 1847. The first American ironclad warship, the USS Monitor, launched on this date in 1862. The destroyer USS Terry made the first airplane rescue at sea, saving the life of James McCurdy 10 miles from Havana. Adolf Hitler sworn in as Chancellor of Germany on this date in 1933. On this same date in 1933, the Lone Ranger debuted on WXYZ radio. It would air for over 23 years. Because of the current state of the copyright of the character, the Lone Ranger, being owned by Disney, that's the reason you haven't heard many of their programs and will probably not hear their programs for some time to come. In 1945, Adolf Hitler gave his last ever public address, a radio address on his 12th anniversary of coming to power. A subsequent address on February 24th was not read by Adolf. 1948, Indian pacifist and leader Mohammed Karamchand Gandhi, assassinated by a Hindu extremist.
This is the All India Radio. Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru.
Friends and comrades, the light has gone out of our lives, and there is darkness everywhere. And I do not quite know what to tell you and how to say it. Our beloved leader, Bapu as we called him, the father of the nation, is no more.
India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, on the assassination of Gandhi on this date in 1948. Martin Luther King Jr.'s home bombed on this date in 1956, in retaliation for the Montgomery bus boycott. In his first State of the Union address on this date in 1961, President Kennedy outlined the problems that the nation was facing, both domestic and abroad.
Each day the crises multiply. Each day their solution grows more difficult. Each day we draw nearer the hour of maximum danger as weapons spread and hostile forces grow stronger. I feel I must inform the Congress that our analysis over the last 10 days make it clear that in each of the principal areas of crisis, the tide of events has been running out, and time has not been our friend.
And time is still not our friend. President Kennedy in his first State of the Union address on this date in 1961. In 1962, two of the high-wire flying Walendas killed in 1962 when their 7-person pyramid collapsed during a performance in Detroit. The Beatles' last public performance on the roof of Apple Records in London on this date in 1969, that impromptu concert broken up by police. George Herbert Walker Bush became the 11th director of the CIA on this date in 1976. It was on this date in 1989 the American embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan closed.
There was a tremendous explosion within the compound of the embassy. There's machine gun fire now. No one seems to know here. A tremendous explosion in the compound.
The sounds at the American Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan on this date in 1989. In 1995, workers from the National Institutes of Health announced the success of clinical trials testing the first preventative treatment for sickle cell disease. And in 2007, Windows Vista went on sale. Among those passing away on this date in history, seamstress Betsy Ross, publisher Frank Nelson Doubleday, also Orville Wright, the aviation pioneer, actor Huntz Hall, broadcaster announcer Ed Herlihy, the wife of Martin Luther King Jr., Coretta Scott King, playwright, screenwriter, author Sidney Sheldon, probably best remembered for his development of I Dream of Jeannie, singer Patty Andrews of the Andrews Sisters, and the man behind Rudolph and Frosty on television, Arthur Rankin of Rankin Bass, all passing away on this date. This is the birth date of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, also actor David Wayne, comedian Dick Martin, Sock It To Me, You Bet Your Sweet Bippy, yes, Dorothy Malone, fine actress, journalist Louis Rukeyser, actress, singer, dancer Tammy Grimes, musician Horst Jankowski, great musician, and Marty Balin. Turning 93 today is Gene Hackman, Vanessa Redgrave, 86, Phil Collins, 72 years of age, as is Charles S. Dutton. You remember him from rock in the 90s. He's also turning 72 today. Brett Butler from Grace Under Fire, 65. Singer Jody Watley, 64. From Batman Dark Knight, Christian Bale, 49. Fez from The 70s Show, Wilmer Valderrama, 43. Musician Josh Kelly, 43. Becky Lynch in the WWE, I guess it's about a year now. Yeah, she's a new mom, reasonably, 36. And actor Jake Thomas is 33. Those some of the people celebrating the 30th day of January is their birthday. If this happens to be your birthday,
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
And from 79 years ago, January 30th, 1944, Harold Peary is the Great Gildersleeve. Thanks for tuning in to this Monday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite radio station. Classic Radio Theater family, you know our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me because, you know, I'm working like 67 hours a day. Now, Mike's offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets ever. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. You'll never want to sleep on anything else once you slept on a set of Giza Dream sheets. A special offer for you right now. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. Call 1-800-928-4715. Use the promo code Wyatt. Or go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Wyatt. It's good on anything on the website. That number again, 1-800-928-4715. Use my promo code Wyatt. Thanks for being with us on this Monday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. And now we go back to January 30th, 1944, 79 years ago today, and find out what's going on in Summerfield with the Water Commissioner, Harold Peary, the Great Gildersleeve.
Kraft presents The Great Gildersleeve.
Yeah.
The Kraft Cheese Company will also bring you the Kraft Music Hall every Thursday night. Present each week at this time Harold Peary as The Great Gildersleeve, written by John Whedon and Sam Moore. Now for The Great Gildersleeve. Like every other town in the country, Summerfield is in the midst of a war bond drive. And wherever big things are doing, there you find Gildersleeve doing things in a big way. He's not only in charge of the door-to-door canvassing being carried on by the air raid wardens in his neighborhood, but he's a member of the committee planning Summerfield's 4th War Loan Rally. Consequently, he's a very busy man, and he doesn't hesitate to let people know it.
Bertie?
Yes, sir?
How soon?
It's almost ready, Mr. Gildersleeve. I'll put it on the table just a minute Miss Marjorie gets here.
It's 6:45. My meeting's at 8. We won't wait for her, Bertie. Go ahead and serve supper as soon as it's ready.
Yes, sir.
Confound it. Where is Marjorie anyway?
Down at the parish house.
Leroy, get up off the floor.
Okay.
If you want to read in a decent light.
Okay.
Where did you say your sister was?
Down at the parish house. They're putting on a show or something.
Who is?
I don't know, some gang of nuts. Want to see a picture of a P-61, Unc?
Not particularly. What's the show?
There you are, a P-61.
So it is. Now, what's
I
this?
bet you think it's a P-38 just because it's got 2 tails.
So it has. What's the show being put on for?
What show?
The show Marjorie's in.
Oh, I don't even know if she's in it. She just went down to try out.
Well, who's doing it? What's it being put on for?
No reason, just a bunch of nuts like Marge.
Leroy, I think you might be more respectful of your sister. If she's found something that interests her, I'm glad to hear it. Probably do her good.
Could be. Hey, here she is now.
Well, my dear.
Hello.
Well. Aren't you going to take off your coat and stay a while?
Oh, yes. What's eating her?
Never mind. We were about to start supper without you, my dear. I have a meeting. War Bond Committee.
Oh, I couldn't eat any supper, thanks.
No supper? Are you sick?
No, I just don't want any.
She's in love. Wally proposed to her.
I haven't even seen Wally. I don't care if I never see him.
But you have to eat, my dear. You have to eat to live.
Not right now, Uncle Mort. I'm too excited, I guess.
Well, tell us all about it. How'd it go? I hear you're going to be in a play.
Oh, Uncle Mort, he said I had the feeling. He said I had something.
Who said this?
Bruce Fairfield.
Well, the Sam Hill is Bruce Fairfield.
Oh, you wouldn't know. He's too important.
Must be too important for me, too. I never heard of him.
He's our director. He's done a lot of Broadway plays and so on. He's from New York.
Tell me, my dear, what kind of a show are you putting on?
It's not a show. It's a play.
Excuse me, a play. What is it?
Well, we haven't decided yet. Well, we've got a name for our organization. We're calling it the Little Theater in the Dell.
Where are you going to get a Dell?
Be quiet, Leroy.
This was our first real meeting today. Mr. Fairfield had me read a part for him, and Uncle Morty's wonderful. He said he really thinks I have something.
Maybe it's mumps.
Leroy.
And that wasn't all he said. He said I reminded him a little of Katharine Hepburn.
That red mop, are you kidding?
It might just possibly interest you to know that Katharine Hepburn has red hair, too. Anyway, he didn't say I looked like Katharine Hepburn. He said I reminded him of her. He ought to know he's worked with all the famous stars.
Evening, Miss Marjorie.
Marjorie.
Oh, good evening, Betty.
Well, what do we got here, Bertie?
Some of that meatloaf you like.
Oh, brother.
Oh, none for me, thank you, Bertie.
No meatloaf?
No, I couldn't just now.
She says she's not hungry, Bertie.
Oh, my land, the child's got to eat. Can I get you something?
Well, you wouldn't have an artichoke, I suppose.
Artichoke? Who eats artichokes? You know we ain't got no artichokes.
I won't have anything then.
I never heard of such a thing. Leroy, you ain't going back on the meatloaf, too.
Not me. I could eat a horse.
Well, we ain't come to that yet. Dig in. Artichoke. I just soon eat a porcupine. Artichokes is for rich folk.
You know who I bet eats artichokes? This Bruce Fairfield.
Leroy, you've never even met him.
Oh, dearie me, I can't eat a thing this evening. I think I'll just toy with an artichoke. Oh, Auntie, sweetie.
Listen.
No, Marjorie. Leroy, eat your meatloaf.
Yes, eat. Go on, stuff yourself. Shovel it in. That's all anybody thinks about in this house, eating. Nobody has any time for the finer things.
I'm sure I don't know what's come over that girl. She ain't herself this evening.
You bet she ain't. She's Katharine Hepburn. How beloved. Oh, my darling. Kiss me, beloved, ere I so wound.
Eat your meatloaf, Leroy, ere I swat. Well, good morning, Marjorie. Feeling better this morning?
I feel all right, thank you.
Woo! Look at the new hairdo. So that's what you've been doing upstairs for the last 2 hours.
It took me about 10 minutes, and it's none of your business.
Oh, pardon me, Miss Hepburn.
Oh, be quiet, little boy.
Marjorie, I want to have a family conference, if you don't mind.
Oh, just as soon as I make this call.
Well, hurry it up.
What's the conference about, Unc?
You'll find out in just a minute. Bertie better be in on this, too. Oh, Bertie!
Hello, Sally. I won't be able to come to your house this afternoon. I'm sorry.
You call me Miss Gildersleeve?
Yes, Bertie.
Can I please have it quiet for a minute?
Oh.
I'm sorry, Sally, but I just can't come, that's all. Oh, because I have to be at the theater.
Oh, what a boa.
Leroy, you be quiet. Let's get this phone call over with.
Well, it isn't exactly a rehearsal, Sally. We're just going to have a reading. Well, it isn't exactly a reading because we haven't chosen a play yet. I'm sorry, Sally. I said I was sorry, didn't I? Well, I just happen to think your little party isn't as important as my career, that's all. Bye.
Career now. Sit down now. I want to get everything planned for our guest.
Guest?
Guest?
Yes. In connection with the Summerfield bond drive, our city will be honored by the presence of an outstanding war hero who will speak at the rally tomorrow night. And we are to have the privilege of entertaining him here in our house.
MacArthur?
Yeah, MacArthur. No, Leroy. MacArthur's busy killing Japs. The man who's coming here is Colonel White. And he shot down 6 planes in the last war, and he's a squadron leader in this one.
Oh, boy, a flyer. Can he sleep in my room, Unc?
Well, I'm glad to see your hospitable attitude, Leroy, but I think we'll put him in the sewing room.
On that little old army cot?
Well, he'd probably feel uncomfortable sleeping anywhere else, Bertie. Now, what about lunch, huh? Can we have something nice for him?
Well, I'll do my best, Mr. Gildersleeve. I don't know much about high-altitude cooking.
Well, you just cook for this man as if he'd never been off the ground, Bertie. He'll love it. Now, Marjorie, I was thinking if you could sort of show the Colonel around this afternoon.
Oh, I'm sorry, Uncle Mort. My rehearsal.
Yes. Now, listen, my dear. I think your interest in the drama is a very fine thing. I don't want to discourage it, but there's a war on. We all have to make some sacrifices in wartime, you know.
Oh, we do? What sacrifice are you making?
Me? Why,
You won't even let this hero have your bed because you don't like to sleep in the sewing room.
Marjorie, that's not true. He can have my bed if he wants it. By George, he'll have it whether he wants it or not. Bertie, will you make up my bed for the Colonel?
Yes, sir. 2 clean sheets?
For the Colonel, yes, 2. And then if you can fix the cot in the sewing room for me.
Yes, sir.
I'll show you how to make sacrifices in wartime. And you, young lady, you can be here for lunch anyway. And I want you to be just as nice as you know how.
How was the Colonel coming here, Unc? In a bomber?
No, Leroy, in a train.
Oh, I thought maybe he could take me up for a little ride.
He's coming on the 12:15, so he ought to be here any minute.
He might have changed his plan so he had to fly after all. Maybe he came on a P-61 and he could give me a ride in that. Maybe he'd let me shoot the machine guns a few times.
Stop talking, Leroy. Nothing is coming out.
Oh, well. Hey, there's the judge's car.
Oh? He's got the Colonel with him.
I'll let him in, Unc.
I'll let him in. Leroy?
Okay. The judge gonna stay for lunch?
No, whether he knows it or not. Well, Colonel White, I presume?
That's me.
I was just going to introduce you, Throckmorton. Colonel White, I take pleasure in presenting my good friend, Throckmorton Gildersleeve.
Glad to meet you, Mr. Gildersleeve.
It's an honor to meet you, Colonel. Welcome to Summerfield, and come in.
Thank you.
Let me have your coat.
I'll take it, Unc. Hi, Judge.
Hello, Leroy.
Oh, Colonel, this is my nephew, Leroy. Colonel White, Leroy.
How are you, son?
Fine. Have you flown a P-61 yet?
Well, not yet, but I hope to soon.
Oh, have you flown a B-26?
Yes, I've flown that.
Boy's just crazy about airplane colonels.
So I see.
Hey, come in the living room, will you, Colonel? I want to show you something.
Leroy, stop yanking the Colonel around.
Oh, that's all right, Mr. Gildersleeve. I don't believe he can hurt me.
He's a fine man, Throckmorton. Finest type of American soldier.
Oh, seems to be, yes.
Tell me one thing, old man. Do I smell lamb chops?
Confounded hooker, you can't stay to lunch.
Well, I brought the Colonel.
I don't care. There are only 7 lamb chops. If you stay, the Colonel and I can't have seconds.
All I know is the Colonel expects me to stay and talk about the details of his speech. After all, you'll have to give up your second lamb chop, Gildy.
This is a dirty trick, you old goat.
Now, we all have to make sacrifices in wartime, you know.
Yeah, but by George, I'm making more than my share.
And then he comes tearing down out of the sun and gives him the old...
Leroy.
Your nephew's found out things about air combat that I never knew, Mr. Gildersleeve. I guess I ought to see more movies.
You want to see Destination Tokyo this afternoon? It's at the Bijou.
Now, Leroy, the Colonel's going to be busy this afternoon. Oh, that reminds me. Go tell Bertie, Leroy, I've persuaded Judge Hooker to stay to lunch.
Gosh, how did you do that?
Leroy, take the message to Bertie.
Okay.
And tell her we can have lunch as soon as Marjorie comes down.
Okay. Hey, Marge, hurry up! Lunch!
I want you to meet my niece, Marjorie, Colonel. I think she's a mighty nice girl.
You bet your life she is. Pretty, too. Well, here she comes, Colonel. You can see for yourself.
Well, she sure is.
Good afternoon, Judge.
Afternoon, Marjorie. Colonel White,
She's my niece, Judge. Marjorie, I take pleasure in presenting Colonel White.
How do you do?
How do you do, Colonel?
Say, am I crazy? No, I'm not. There's something about you that suggests Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, do you really think so?
Oh, for corn's sake. Come on, Colonel, chow.
The Great Gildersleeve will be with us again in just a few seconds.
Of course, radio back in this era, in 1944, was very much into supporting the war and the war bond drives, and that was something that they were all very much behind. And the Great Gildersleeve was no exception. We've aired a couple of programs where the total emphasis has been on war bond drives. And what you're hearing here is another one of those episodes where not just about the war bond drive, but also about something crazy going on in the Gildersleeve household. 79 years ago, January 30th, 1944, Harold Peary is the Great Gildersleeve here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We'll have the news from 79 years ago today and the conclusion of the Great Gildersleeve when Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox continues following these important messages from your favorite station. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station, an episode of The Great Gildersleeve, starring Harold Peary, from Sunday, January 30th, 1944. In the newspapers of that Sunday, 79 years ago today, these were some of the headlines. More than 800 bombers hammered Frankfurt in peak attack after pounding Berlin again. Channel fortification also bombed. In Italy, British advanced 3 miles from the invasion beachhead and capture a bridge 18 miles south of Rome. Allies maintain air mastery. On the Russian side, Soviets taking a rail center with surprise attacks. Leningrad-Moscow Railroad cleared by taking a large station. In the Pacific, Rabaul raided for the 25th time in a month and 23 Japanese planes destroyed. Tokyo says the Rabaul situation is serious. Associated Press reporting Rabaul is doomed. Tokyo radio conceded. As General Douglas MacArthur reported, more than 400 enemy planes have been destroyed at that New Britain fortress this month. Radio Tokyo admitting in a broadcast for home consumption, we cannot hold even the slightest optimism for Rabaul. President Roosevelt said last night that the outpouring of American dollars in the fourth war bond campaign will serve notice that we Americans are irrevocably united in determination to end this war as quickly as possible in the unconditional surrender of our enemies. In a midnight broadcast, the chief executive coupled his war loan appeal with an expression of gratitude to the thousands of citizens who are contributing their dimes and dollars in the fight against infantile paralysis. The March of Dimes. When 18-year-old Mrs. Juanita Waits of Columbus, Ohio, went to Hattiesburg, Mississippi last November to be near her husband, Private First Class Wayne Waits, who's stationed in an Army camp there, she left their 6-month-old daughter, Marilyn Ann, with a friend. Regular letters informed her the baby was well until 1 week ago when she received one that read, "I should have told you, but last November, right after you left, I got tired of keeping the baby, and I had a chance to go out west with a friend, and I left the baby in a gray machine in Detroit." Mrs. Waits arrived in Detroit yesterday and told her story to a policewoman. A check of records showed Mary Doe number 156 abandoned in a gray car the night of November 6th. From the property loom, Mrs. Glinsky brought a pile of infant garments. Mrs. Waits quickly picked out a sateen-edged jacket, a sweater, and a dress edged in blue ribbon as being Marilyn's. The record showed they were the garments on Mary Doe number 156. The Child Aid Society reported the child had been placed in a private home after a futile search for the mother, but Mrs. Waits was assured she would be reunited with her daughter on Monday. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Sunday, January 30th, 1944, on your radio, The Great Gildersleeve. The conclusion next on this Monday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. On Tuesday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, Robert Young, Father Knows Best, from 71 years ago, January 31st, 1952, An Evening Out. Jim and Margaret Anderson planning a night out. The plans, though, don't quite work out because of family demands. That's coming up tomorrow on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. But now the conclusion of The Great Gildersleeve, starring Harold Peary, 79 years ago, January 30th, 1944.
Now let's return to the Great Gildersleeve. Colonel White has been his guest overnight and has made a big hit with everybody, although no one but Leroy has been able to get in a word. After breakfast the following morning, Leroy is still at it.
How big a crew does it carry? Has it got a ball turret? What's its ceiling? Did you ever fly on one? Oh, Leroy.
One question at a time, young man.
Don't you think the Colonel ever wants to talk about anything but the war?
Why should he? Hey, tell me, Colonel.
Now, Leroy, that'll be enough.
I don't mind.
Colonel White has been very patient, Leroy, but you have no business monopolizing him. Besides, it's time you were getting along to school.
Can I ask him just one more question, Unc? Just one?
Well, if the Colonel can stand it. Ever had the 3rd degree before, Colonel?
Go ahead, son. What's the question?
Do you know any military secrets?
Why? Have you got a market for them?
No kidding, do you?
Leroy, Uncle Mort, really?
No, my boy.
Just one secret, Colonel. Just a little one. Anything at all. Anything the other kids don't know.
Well, I don't know anything that would be much use to the enemy, but if you'll come over here, I'll whisper one in your ear.
Yeah? What?
Radar.
Oh, who doesn't know that?
All right, Leroy, off to school.
Okay. So long, Colonel. See you later.
Well, shall we go in the other room? I know you got things to do today, Colonel. And if you'll excuse me, I got a little furnace work to do down in the cellar before I leave. Ash day.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, used to have a man to do this, Colonel, but you know, with a manpower shortage.
Yes, indeed.
Good night, Unc.
Good night. So long. Goodbye, Leroy.
Well, I guess I'll run up to my room for a minute.
Oh, Colonel White.
Yes?
I've been wanting to speak to you, alone.
Well, don't tell me you're after a military secret, too.
Must you joke?
I beg pardon?
You don't need to pretend with me.
Am I pretending?
I know what you must be thinking. I want to apologize for my brother and my uncle.
Apologize?
You see, Summerfield is a small town, and we're small-town people. I guess there isn't anything we can do about that. But we don't have to be satisfied with it.
Well, I think Summerfield is a swell town, from what I've seen of it.
Oh, you don't have to be polite with me, Colonel. I understand.
I wish I did.
You're from New York, aren't you? It must be wonderful to live in New York. I suppose you go to a new play every night.
Oh, hardly that.
But you do love the theater, don't you?
Well, I like a good show, yes.
Oh, it's wonderful to meet someone who really understands. I knew the first moment I saw you. You're not like my uncle and all these people around here leading their little lives. You've lived. They just exist.
I don't know that I follow you.
People are so tragic, aren't they? Listen to him down there shaking the furnace. Poor Uncle Mort. What is he to look forward to? Well, I'm not going to get stuck here in Summerfield.
I don't know what you have in mind, but I wouldn't rush into anything. You're an attractive girl. You have a nice home here.
Where would the world be if we were satisfied with that? Where would Katharine Hepburn be today if she had stayed in Hartford all her life?
Hartford, I suppose.
Exactly. Oh, here comes my uncle. Oh, I don't know how to say it, but you brought me a glimpse of a new world.
Well, you two still standing here? Shall we be getting along downtown, Colonel?
I'll be right with you. I've just got to run up to my room.
Well, my dear, what have you two been in such deep conversation about?
Something you wouldn't even understand.
Oh, pardon me.
I wonder if you would be very surprised to know that I've met the man whom I shall one day marry.
Marjorie, stop your nonsense. Remind me to order some more coal, will you? Because we only got enough coal to let... What did you say?
Heck, Unc, I'm disappointed in Colonel White.
Disappointed, Leroy? Why?
I thought he was a man's man, and here he's been off with Marge all afternoon.
Yes. I wonder where she could have taken him, confound it.
It's your fault. You sicked her onto him.
You don't suppose she would take him to that place called Brownie's Beanery, do you?
Brownie's Beanery. Yeah, she might. That's all there is in the afternoon. You want me to call up?
No. He'll be here for supper, all right. He knows he's got to speak at the rally in a couple of hours. See who that is, will you, Leroy?
Sure. Maybe it's Marge and she forgot her key. Mr. Peavy! Hey, Unc, it's Mr. Peavy.
Hello, Leroy.
Hello, Peavy.
Good evening, Mr. Gildersleeve. I just dropped in to make my bond report.
Oh, yes. Take off your coat. Make yourself at home.
Thank you. It won't take me very long to report. There are only 16 houses in my block.
Judge Hooker sold $2,000 worth, and there's only 4 houses in his block.
Never mind, Leroy. Those are pretty big houses.
What difference does that make?
Young man, I'm not in the mood to discuss economics with you right now. Go somewhere and play with your toys.
Toys? He thinks I still have toys.
Mr. Gildersleeve, I'm afraid I didn't do as well as the judge.
No?
No. $2,000. My.
The trouble with you is you don't push hard enough, Peavy. You're not aggressive enough.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that.
Well, it's the truth just the same. You have to make an emotional, dramatic appeal.
Me, Mr. Gildersleeve?
Well, you ought to try. How did you make out?
Well, here are the applications and the money. I sold $600 worth altogether.
Well, that's very good, Peavy. Not bad at all.
Well, it's not much money in a drive for $14 billion, but I'm kind of proud of one thing.
Oh? What's that?
I sold a bond in every house on my street.
Boy, Peavy, that's wonderful. You're the best salesman in Summerfield.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. You see, every house on my street has a boy in service, and they want him to come back home, that's all.
Well, you did a fine job anyhow, Peavy.
Yeah, I think I'd better be going, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Oh, wait a minute. Peavy, what do you do when a young girl falls in love with an older man?
That's a hard question for me to answer. It never happened to me.
No, I suppose not.
At least it hasn't yet.
Now, this is serious, Peavy. That is, it could be. Marjorie may be falling for a man 25 years older than herself. What can I do about it?
Well, why don't you explain to Margie that when she's 35, the man will be 60. And when she's 45, he'll be 70. And when she's 60, he'll be 85.
Yeah, and when she's 90, he'll be 115.
Well, that's right. It gets worse as you get older.
Why, that's silly. If a girl wants a man now, what does she care about 10 years from now? I guess I'll... Oh, there they are now. The Colonel's here, Bertie.
Well, I had a wonderful time, Colonel.
So did I. You made me feel younger than I have in years.
Oh, my goodness, I'm going to have to do something about this.
Come in.
Is it all right?
Sure, come in. I'm just packing my bag. I'll have to leave right after the rally, so I'd better do it now.
Can I help?
No, thanks. It won't take me a minute. We travel light in the Army.
Well, we're expecting great things from this rally, Colonel.
To tell you the truth, I'd rather face the Japs than an audience. But I'll be doing the same thing tomorrow in Little Falls.
We're going to be sorry to have you leave, Colonel.
Well, I'm sorry to have to. You've treated me like $1 million here, all of you. I think you have a very nice family.
Thank you. I wanted to speak to you about Marjorie.
She seems very much interested in the stage.
Yes, we've had to put up with that. She seems to have taken quite a fancy to you, too.
Well, you know.
I hope she hasn't been making a fool of herself. I know she has.
Well, young girl sees a uniform, you know. And then she seems to have me mixed up with New York in her mind. And she seems to have New York mixed up with Mecca. There we are. That didn't take long, did it?
Colonel, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor before you go.
Glad to. What is it?
I want you to go down in the living room and have a talk with Marjorie.
Well, I told you I'm not much of a speech maker.
Oh, you can do it. You're the only one who can. If you don't straighten her out before you leave, I'll have the devil's own time with her after you're gone. I know that girl.
Well, I'll be glad to try.
Great. Come on. She's down there now, waiting to say goodbye.
All right.
Now, Colonel, all you have to do is give her a little fatherly advice. You know, point out that you're older than she is and so on.
Well, this is a little out of my line.
I'll just wait outside here. You go ahead. She's in there. I'll be listening.
Well.
Colonel, you're going.
Yes, my plane leaves right after the rally.
Oh, it must be wonderful to fly, to feel the cool, clean, fresh wind in your face, to leave the earth behind with all its stupidity. Oh, I wish I could fly with you.
Yes, I wanted to speak to you about that.
Oh, don't speak. Let us just have this moment together. This last small moment.
Well, if you don't mind.
Please.
Now, listen, my dear.
Don't call me my dear. You sound like my uncle.
Well, I'm old enough to be your uncle. Has that ever occurred to you?
Oh, you're going to treat me like a child now. What difference do our ages make? What is time? What is anything?
You make it a little difficult to argue.
What are arguments? Words. Let's be honest with each other, shall we?
I'm for that.
Let's have the courage to be frank. Let's call a spade a spade.
All right. You start.
Well, let's face it. You're a man. I'm a woman.
I go along with you so far.
You once had the kindness to say that you found me attractive. Well, I find you attractive.
Well, that's fine, but Marjorie, you've got to realize...
Oh, nothing you can say will change it. That's just the way it is, that's all. That's life, I guess. You'll go away now and I won't see you. You'll be off to the war where your duty lies. I won't try to hold you, but promise me one thing.
What's that?
When it's all over and you come back to the city you've loved so much, if I come to New York, may I look you up?
Why, sure. I'd be glad to see you anytime.
That's all. That's all I ask.
But, Marjorie, you don't realize, if you just listen...
Don't you see? Nothing you could ever say or do would change it because I ask so little.
Marjorie.
Yes.
I have a confession to make.
Yes.
I'm mad about you. Wild about you.
Oh, please.
All last night I lay awake dreaming of the moment when I would crush you in my arms.
Oh, no,
And
please.
now, come away with me, Marjorie, now, tonight, this minute.
Colonel, let go!
You will, you must. I have a wife and 7 children, but never mind them. Fly with me in my flying machine.
No!
Thanks, Colonel. Then 6 is 16, and 8 is 24, 3 is 27.
Miss Gildersleeve, you got a minute?
6 is 33. Just a second, Bertie.
Excuse me.
33 and 8 is 41, 44. Is that all? Sorry, Bertie. I was just adding up the amount of war bonds we've sold in this neighborhood. It's not too good.
Well, Mr. Gildersleeve, you can add this.
Huh? Why, Bertie.
$18.75. I never thought I'd make it, but it's all there.
Boy, that'll buy a $25 bond. Oh, that's great, Bertie.
Oh, shucks, it ought to be 100. I know that. But I figure if I can buy one of these every month, of course, I know they can't hold up the invasion for me. But give me time, I'll get there.
Well, I only wish more people figured that way, Bertie.
I was thinking, Mr. Gildersleeve, you got into them slips of paper where it says sell me a bond?
You mean application forms? Oh, sure. But what's the idea, Bertie?
Well, sir, I got a meeting down at the lodge tonight, and ain't no reason for it except a lot of folks want to sit around and talk. Just a little old unfinished business, that's all. And I figured I'd hand around some of them applications.
Well, you're welcome to all you want, Bertie, but do you think you can sell any? After all, that's a...
You just watch me. I'm going to say to them folks, now you listen to me. You folks sitting around here gabbing. We got a war going on. We got a lot of unfinished business, and we ain't doing anything about it to finish it. I'm going to say to them, there's a plenty of you folks making more money than you ever made before in your lives. And what you doing with it? Throwing it around. And in these days, that's a sin. Anybody who spends his money for anything but the food he needs to eat and the clothes he needs on his back, that's a sin. And he's a fool besides. Because things just ain't got the stuff in them these days. You go buy yourself a fancy new patent leather handbag, and what happens? Right away the handle comes off, because they ain't got the stuff.
Yes.
The stuff is going to the soldiers where it belongs. So get some sense and put your money where it belongs and where it's going to do somebody some good. Put it into war bonds. That's what I'll tell them, and they'll do it. They're good people. They want to fight this war just as hard as anybody else, but they get a little careless sometimes, that's all.
Don't we all? Well, here you are, Bertie. Here are the applications. Go get them.
I will. Good night, Miss Gildersleeve.
Good night, Bertie. God bless you. Good night, everybody.
Music heard on this program was under the direction of Claude Sweet. This is Ken Carpenter speaking for the Kraft Cheese Company, inviting you to tune in again next week for the further adventures of the Great Gildersleeve.
Lots of flag waving and patriotism, and that's something that we don't hear enough these days on radio. January 30th, 1944, The Great Gildersleeve here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit my friend Mike Lindell over at MyPillow. You'll find all sorts of great savings. MyPillow.com, promo code Wyatt. That's MyPillow.com, promo code Wyatt. And don't forget to visit my webpage while you're on the interwebs. That's at classicradio.stream. Stream our shows on demand. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there, find our social media links. And if you enjoy what we do here, you can buy me a coffee. That buy me a coffee money doesn't buy me coffee because I'm not a coffee man. But you can, it helps us acquire additional classic radio programs and also helps us keep our distribution channels up and running. That's at classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.